I'm happiest in the saddle.
A fellow sportsman.
I am an FBI agent!
Great Scott!
What do you say we cut the chit-chat? A-hole!
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Come with me if you want to live.
Hello, and welcome to Retro Ramble. I'm Charlie McGee.
I'm George McGee.
And this month, we're taking a travel back in time to 1998 to review the cult classic?
I'd say so, yeah.
Blade. You could argue that maybe there's never been a black comic book character brought to life as successfully as Black Panther. You're wrong.
The first successful black superhero was in 1998.
Yeah, so this is pre-Matrix, pre-Marvel, 1 year after Batman and Robin had just happened.
Had just ruined cinemas.
Yeah, so a while ago, so we're going to be looking at why this film stands up to the test of time, what it was for us back in the day. We'll do the usual chat about production. There'll be coulda, woulda, shoulda. There'll be lots of pounding techno music.
Hopefully.
Well, maybe just...
It was the late 90s after all.
Exactly. But before we go any further, a quick word from George with some general housekeeping.
Housekeeping. We are not film journalists. We are two brothers who grew up on a healthy diet of films and enjoy talking about it. So there will be rambling, there will be the occasional swearing, and more than likely the odd bad impression as well. So we aim to entertain, hopefully be a little bit of trivia in there for you.
We're looking at these films with fresh eyes, aren't we? We're going back. I mean, we loved these films growing up. We loved them when we watched them. We've watched them since, but...
Seeing if they still hold up.
Yeah, in the wake of all of the comic book films that are coming out, we're being...
Well, we also thought, obviously, this to coincide with the launch of the biggest Marvel film to date, Avengers Infinity War, which is being advertised, really pushed as hard as possible. There's a lot of people that are probably too excited about it, but it's a big event. Obviously, the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, the whole MCU has been building up to it. So we thought it was quite apt to go back and look at the first genuinely successful Marvel property.
Excellent. And what are we recording on, George, this time? I guess 1998, we are rife with mini discs.
Well, you know, you and I are big fans of the mini discs, so I think even in this film, Stephen Dorff is listening to a mini disc at one point.
It's a pretty good. It's a jungle track, which I'll try and embed somewhere in this show. So we've got everything ready.
We're in the Vampire Archives. Let's go.
Yeah, it's smelly, smells of blood, but let's hit it. Enjoy the show.
You keep your eyes open. They're everywhere.
A secret nation of evil.
Tonight, the age of man comes to an end.
A war to save our world.
Blade myself killed as many of them as we can find.
A hero who knows no fear.
He makes the weapons. I use them.
Wesley Snipes. Stephen Dorff. Blade. Rated R. Starts Friday.
So, George, 1998, Blade, Wesley Snipes. Who brought us this marvel of a Marvel film?
First of all, I'll talk a little bit, as I did in our Batman episode, I'll give you a bit of a background to Blade, the character. So he first appeared in the mid-1970s, created not by Stan Lee or Jack Kirby, who developed a lot of the key Marvel properties, created by an amazingly named guy called Marv Wolfman, who sounds like a comic book character in himself. The comic essentially mixed those blaxploitation influences of the 70s with classic vampire lore, so Van Helsing, Dracula, things like that. So the character went through various guises since the 70s, but his only main superpower, which they established a little bit later on, was he had an immunity to vampire bites. So there's been a lot of freedom with the film adaptation. They've obviously, because he's not that much of a well-known comic book character, there's been quite an open interpretation with this film adaptation, as I've discovered, because I've never read the books. I think the first time I became aware of the character was a show that you and I used to watch in the mid-90s, the Spider-Man cartoon. Blade first popped up in that, in more sort of popular form, and the character was always an aggressive loner, but he was quite outspoken. So Wesley going for the sort of strong silent type again is a different sort of spin on the character.
But they had to do more than just him turning up going, what's your special power? It's like, I am immune to vampire bites.
Nobody can bite me. Nobody can bite me.
We're going to need more than that.
Yeah, the mid-90s was a funny time for Marvel. So DC were being very successful. Batman was, as we say, until 1997 with Batman and Robin.
Eyes to see you.
But Marvel had really struggled to have a successful film adaptation. So they were facing bankruptcy as a company at the time in the mid-90s. They'd sold off a lot of the rights to their projects. So that's why it took a bit of a while for the MCU to be formed. But so there had been film adaptations.
So they sold X-Men to Fox.
X-Men to Fox, Spider-Man to Sony. Bizarrely, this was picked up by New Line Cinema, who were a division of Warner Brothers. So Warner Brothers were actually... ironic. So yeah, there'd been the Punisher film with Dolph Lundgren, which I think we need to revisit at some point because it's...
Is that the one with John Travolta?
No. The first one with Dolph Lundgren as the Punisher, and apparently it's like it was straight to video, and I've seen it years ago. It's pretty
like many other Dolph Lundgren films.
Most some would say. There was also a Captain America film in the I think early 90s, maybe late 80s. Again, that's pretty ropey. But originally, the film started off being produced at Columbia with apparently with LL Cool J tipped to lead the role.
Right.
But it eventually ended up at New Line and with a writer called David Goyer on writing duties. And Goyer would go on to become famous for writing the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy. However, he has also wrote and directed the third Blade film, Blade Trinity, which many people consider fairly awful, because it is.
I found it watchable. I was just happy to have another Blade film
True.
At the time. I think now looking back at it, you can point fun at it, but I think what was more interesting about that film was what was going on behind the camera in terms of Wesley Snipes and everything else, but we'll get to that in a bit.
In terms of when it ended up at New Line and Goyer on board, in terms of the casting wish list, Wesley Snipes was the top of that list, and obviously so, because following, in the sort of mid-90s, following Demolition Man, Passenger 57, Snipes was a hot commodity. Brought that sort of, even if it was a lesser known comic book character, people would happily just go and see any new Wesley Snipes films. Interestingly, he was doing a variety of different projects. So whilst he was doing the more action orientated stuff like Demolition Man and Passenger 57, he was also doing some dramas as well, character led dramas. But ironically, around the same time that Blade was trying to get made, Snipes was trying to make and produce a film based on the Black Panther comic.
Yeah, because that's what I think I heard, or you and I discussed, the fact that what led Wesley Snipes to do Blade was actually his interest. He wanted to do Black Panther first, and he got offered Blade.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time trying to get Black Panther made. He spoke with various directors.
People aren't ready for this yet.
Well, that was it. And they were trying he met with John Singleton, who made Boys in the Hood, and he was keen to set it in America and tie it into the actual Black Panther political group. And that was also a concern, that people didn't know the character. They would think it was a political drama about the Black Panthers, and also the limits of special effects at the time. So all the sort of challenges that Wesley Snipes faced when he was approached with Blade, he was like, okay, well, what have I learned from my work on Black Panther? So he's obviously had quite a lot of input. He wanted to give the Blade a comic book film with a sort of a Hong Kong action aesthetic, and as I said, it's quite a loose interpretation of the comic book.
But that's why the film looks so stylistic. You've got that great sped up camera stuff going on and sort of a noir tinge to it.
Yeah, so in terms of directors, apparently David Fincher was originally approached, and I think it's a good thing that he passed, because this is 1998, and obviously David Fincher would go on in 98, 99 to make Fight Club.
One of the best films ever.
One of the best films ever made. The film's directed by Stephen Norrington, whose background was in special effects. He worked on, one of the films was Aliens.
Heard of it?
May be familiar with it. So yeah, this was like his second feature. He'd done his first film, Death Machine, was seen as being quite weird, violent and controversial, but it was supposed to be very slickly and stylishly done, so that's why he'd sort of attracted attention there. Stephen Norrington, whilst Blade is probably his most famous film, his second most famous film is his last feature. So he's done 4 films in total, and his last film was The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Wasn't just his last film.
So yes, that was a failed comic book property, and that was responsible for making Sean Connery retire from acting early. Apparently Connery hated working with Norrington so much, apparently they almost came to hitting each other, and Connery's quoted as saying, "The first day I met him, I knew he was insane." So yes,
interesting.
as you say, we're going to go on to talk about the style of this film, but this film shows, and I forgot how well shot, well edited this film is.
Yeah, I mean, arguably, were it not for some of the costume designs and 1 or 2 small bits of CGI, this film still stands up very well today, and you could easily make the mistake that this was part of, would you call it phase 1, the Iron Man, Incredible Hulk phase? You could.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not that far off it.
No, not at all. I mean, there is a
5 or 6 years.
I mean, there's quite a nice sort of realistic approach of, a hidden world, a world beneath a world sort of type thing that's been going on.
It's always been here. You just didn't know about it. So, before we dive into the film, George, I think we both saw this at the cinema.
That is correct. I remember together as brothers. I remember we hadn't really seen much about it. I mean, I don't know if we'd even seen a trailer, but
it was one of those films that came out of nowhere. It wasn't a summer blockbuster.
It wasn't. I think it came out, if I remember rightly, it came out randomly, like October time.
I think it was around about Halloween. Vampires kind of makes sense.
Yeah, and we were just like, oh, new Wesley Snipes film. Looks like he kicks ass and he's got a samurai sword. So samurai sword, vampires. Yeah, let's give it a go. And so I think we went into it with quite low expectations, but I think it's fair in saying we were both blown away by it at the time.
But also this was...
we were the key demographic.
We were the key demographic. We were, so I would have been like 17, 18. You would have been in teens as well.
Yeah, 14, 15.
And this was also at the same time DVDs had come upon us. So I just remember this being one of the first DVDs, this and X-Men, and watching it over and over again. Yeah,
that was something I was going to go on to later, is that, that this film for me in terms of first memories is of my first memory of a DVD special features. So we'll go on to talk about
we'll talk about the deleted scenes in a bit,
the deleted scenes and the alternate endings, but that was so mind-blowing to sort of
to have all of that content,
to have that content and to be like something that you never heard of before, or stuff that had been maybe you'd read in a magazine internet. Well, before the internet there wasn't really that type of content available.
Yeah, you didn't get to see it. So let's dive into the film that is Blade. A great opening scene. I think you ask anybody what's one of your favourite opening scene without getting too niche, what's your favourite comic book opening scene? This is just brilliant, especially for the sign of the time. Remember, this is predating The Matrix, and there's so many things it does brilliantly. Like obviously there's the soundtrack, but it's just the
pounding techno.
Pounding techno, an American version of what a nightclub looks like.
I mean, it's funny you say that, like about sort of strongest opening of any film, never mind a comic book property. There was something on Twitter recently, somebody was asking, what are your top 3 favourite openings? And there was a lot of, films that have been thrown into the mix already, stuff like Jaws, Raiders of the Lost Ark, things like that. But yeah, for me, Blade was, when I was scratching my brain thinking, what else? Blade was one of the first that came into my head. That it's such a, and I think that's it, it's sort of such a bold opening. It really grabs your attention, and
because you're wondering what's going on. They've already dropped that style in that they're in the car, they're going to this bloodbath, this club, and they're already doing the camera tricks, and there's the tiny little things. I always get mixed up, but they're driving along, and there's stuff going on the side of the street, which on a second viewing you realise they're vampires.
Yes, yeah, no, it's
they're everywhere.
They're everywhere. No, it's really well done. There's a lot of speeding up and sort of jump cuts, jumping back and forth. And it opens, you've got this car driving through the city. Well, after the sort of the Batman-esque opening of seeing Blade's mother, it's all very sort of quickly cut. Flashback. Oh, she's been attacked by some animal. 2 bite marks on her neck.
What could it be?
More exposition dialogue. But it's a bit of a Batman-esque opening, and then it quickly cuts forward to present day, or I think it just says now.
Yeah.
And you've got this this girl and a guy in a car. The guy could not be any more of a white boy wannabe jock douchebag. He is really, really annoying.
Doesn't know what he's doing.
He's just he's out of his league. And I think it's safe to say we all want him to die.
We're not expecting him to, but we are soon hoping that he is going to die.
I mean, we can understand why everyone's barging him in the club whilst he's trying to do his really bad dancing.
And what a club scene though. You've got that banging techno track, which you and I think probably argued over who it is. It is actually New Order, isn't it?
It's a New Order remix.
It's a New Order remix, but I think when we were listening to it, we had the guys who'd done the remix. I can't remember it being. It's
not by New Order. I think it's a remix of a New Order song or something like that. We'll
just have it playing gently in the background. It's lovely bedding music.
Throughout this episode, we'll be pounding techno music, but it's a cracking track. And
good twist on a nightclub scene. The fact that people aren't reaching
for the lasers, reaching for the blood sprinklers.
Blood sprinklers.
Yeah, no, it is
the crescendo of the evening.
It is an amazing scene in terms of, I mean, as you say, it's a very Hollywood depiction of a nightclub. Sexy people, sexy dancing, all girls dancing with each other. But that whole part of the music building up,
the crescendo,
and then the crescendo, and instead of people being off their faces on drugs, they are off their faces on blood.
Yes.
Delicious blood. But then it cuts to, and again, the style is awesome of, this human Josh white boy is trying to make his escape.
Everyone's covered in blood.
And it gets to Wesley, who's on the edge of the crowd. Not a drop on him.
He's shining. He's got like this sort of matte finish on all of his body armor blade thing, and he's just like so pristine. And I think even by the end of it, throughout the film, he does not get a drop on him.
Well, and as you say, it was pre-Matrix, but it was the late 90s, so long black leather trench coats were kind of
they were
big.
in.
I had a leather coat, if you remember, in the late 90s.
I thought you didn't want to talk about your stylistic challenges.
No, I'm quite proud of my leather jacket. My wife still has horrible flashbacks of my leather jacket.
You're not allowed to wear it anymore, though.
No, sadly it's been disposed of. But yeah.
So we jump into this amazing, beautifully choreographed, as a pre-Matrix fight.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's the surprising. I think the graphics, with the
that
vampire,
was a surprise.
Yeah, the vampires being taken out and they disintegrate into ash and dust.
That was at the time.
I think you'd seen nothing. Still now, you've seen nothing like it. With stuff like in the Lost Boys and another sort of.
It was very
films.
Slow melting.
Yeah, sort of very much prosthetic based, but yeah, I think it's safe to say that the CGI sort of vampire deaths still hold up reasonably well. I mean, they obviously get better in the films. Remember, they're really good in Blade 2, aren't they? Because they're more like sort of glowing with ash and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I think that was 4 years later.
Yeah, there was quite a gap between.
And then they made another one. I think 4 years or two. Anyway,
Yeah.
there was some gaps between these films, but not too long. But it did allow the CGI, which was very quickly developing, to go to the next level. But I just think the choreography is great.
It's a great. I mean, obviously Wesley is an accomplished martial artist.
Don't mess.
And there's some great fight choreography, throughout this film, and we may have touched on it previously, but you don't get that style of
Smooth editing.
Yeah, that smooth editing where you can actually appreciate the moves and stuff they're doing, because it is a bit like the stuff that Jackie Chan does. It's almost
blink and you miss it.
It's balletic. It's a bit like a ballet. It's in terms of the moves and the form and stuff like that. It all looks good. And in true sort of 80s, 90s martial arts, everyone attacks him one at a time.
Everyone get him one at a time. But I do love there's a few, and I'll talk about it in the Act 3. There's some great things they do in terms of the fight choreography, in that when he does like a side kick into this guy, before he kicks him, he moves his long trench coat out of the way, and then he kicks him.
Ah, nice.
And it's such a smooth move, because if you actually, maybe they did a few cuts.
Yeah.
But there's some great little. He's having fun with it, and this is, I think, what Wesley brings that other action heroes didn't bring with them. Yes, we've had Van Damme, but Stallone and Arnie weren't able to bring this. He is he's a very highly decorated martial artist, but he was able to put a new dimension on that into his acting. I know it's the third time we're saying it, but we hadn't seen The Matrix yet. So I mean,
and in terms of that marrying up, usually in films previously there was gunfights and martial arts separately.
Yeah,
this was the first, like, a combination of the two that obviously The Matrix did really well, where you're combining gunplay and fighting all at the same time.
We'd have to wait a bit longer before we got full-on Gun Carter.
Gun Carter in Equilibrium, that Matrix ripoff.
A world ruled by Sean Pertwee's head.
Massive head.
Enough about that.
Enough about that. So, yeah, you've even got, I think one of my favourite moments is when he's got that sort of rocket-assisted, it's a shotgun that fires steel stakes, and he blasts that guy across the room, and he impales him, like stakes him on the wall, and he does a really good fist pump.
Yeah, yes. even he's happy with his work.
Yeah, Wesley's pumped about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got the guy that crops up, who's the bad guy, Deacon Frost's right-hand man, a guy called Quinn, is played by Donald Logue, and he's recently been he's the best thing in the Gotham TV show, the Batman spin-off.
I tried to get into it, but a Batman spin-off, a Gotham show with no Batman, I'd struggle.
Yeah, no, this guy, Donald Logue, he plays the corrupt partner to Jim Gordon, and I'd say I watched most of the first series, and I just couldn't get into it. I found the characters too annoying, but he's really good as this corrupt cop, whereas he's actually really brilliantly annoying in this film, I would say.
I think he's well cast.
Yeah, he does his job very well. So yeah, he's been set on fire. There's that. I remember one of your favourite moments where the police turn up at the meat locker, and the cop just points at the burning corpse and just goes, "Put him out."
It's so casual. It's like he takes a look at the scene, he takes it all in, and he's like, "Put him out."
Yeah, it's not like, "Oh, for God's sake,
that man's on fire." It's just like, put him out. But then again, I think I was thinking this on the second watch, that because I always used to laugh at how casual that cop is. But then watching it this time, I was like, oh no, because they've got the police as well.
So maybe
these police who turned up know it's a vampire. I don't know.
Quinn's corpse, in inverted commas, gets sent to the morgue. He wakes up. It's actually one of the few genuine horror moments, I would say, in this film. Yeah, because he's burnt to a crisp, but
he's cut open.
But he wakes gruesome, up, and he's charred to a crisp, and just turns into an animal, which I thought was hilarious. Like,
hey man, he's got to regenerate. He needs human blood.
Yeah, and obviously Wesley turns up to finish him off.
Yeah.
I think Wesley does a bit of lisping because he's got his fangs in.
There's quite a lot on through this film where you can see people have got fangs in and when they haven't got fangs in.
Now, I was listening to an interview with Wesley recently, and he was talking about how uncomfortable it was to wear the teeth in and get used to them. Yeah. So you can see that is sort of coming through in the performance. But yeah, as we said, so he's got this very handily. He picks up this hematologist, is she?
Yeah. She's a damsel in distress who also
is a blood specialist.
Yeah.
Very handy for when you're fighting vampires. Yeah. You talked about the style of this film, and I think Norrington does this really nice I don't know the exact term for it, but he's speeding up. It's almost like a time-lapse thing.
I think I knew the name. It's called cranking, isn't it?
Speed ramping, I think? Or is that, I think that's a fighting style where you like...
Neither of us know.
No, but I think speed ramping's where like that sort of Van Damme effect where you see a move and then it speeds up really quickly.
Then what's cranking? Cranking is something else as well, where you...
Cranking is something I do when I'm alone.
Crying and... No. Anyway, there's a really nice time-lapse, so going, that sort of stop-motion photography from day to night. And I really like the feel that they get for like the streets are completely empty at dusk. Like there's not a single car apart from Blade's car on the street. Yeah.
It's got a good, quite a sort of brooding soundtrack as well.
Throughout, and they keep this style all the way through. I think that's what's good. It doesn't go all nuts.
Yeah, and it doesn't spend a huge amount of time during the day, does it?
No, there's a few, but even when it's in the day, there's a lot of in shadow and stuff like that. It's the fact that they have to do most of the stuff. There is some stuff outside, but just as you'd imagine with a vampire film, a lot of it goes on behind closed doors. And speaking of behind closed doors...
So the next scene, we're at the Vampire Council. And I love this scene because it's so evil. You've got all the heads of vampires around this really long conference table. Beautiful set design. It's so camp because at the head vampire, you've got who's quite a renowned sort of character actor, is a guy called Udo Keir.
We love Udo Keir.
He turned up in everything. He's in loads of films, loads of TV, and he is so camp. The Vampire Council has existed for thousands of years. Frost, you are merely turned. You're not a pure blood like us.
Anyway,
so it establishes Stephen Dorff as the main villain, Deacon Frost, he's quite cool. He's against the grain. So yeah, as you said, he's not a pure blood vampire. He's been turned, but he's sick of their old ways, and he just doesn't give a shit.
Sees the human as cattle. We should be ruling them.
Yeah,
and he's got a point. They've got superpowers. Why are they hiding in the dark?
But then we quickly switch to Blade's hideout, and we get introduced to Blade's sort of right-hand man, his partner,
his Q branch, Igor,
who is Whistler.
Yeah.
The brilliant Chris Christopherson, who is a legendary actor who's quite big in the 70s as an actor. He's also a country musician as well. He's a good singer. And I think he's a great addition to the film. He sort of...
brings gravitas, definitely.
He definitely brings gravitas, but he also brings a bit of like...
tongue-in-cheek when it comes to Blade's macho-ness.
The whole sort of po-faced uber-seriousness of Wesley, even though Wesley does have some great lines. He's got somebody to, him and Whistler, bounce off each other, and there's some good moments there. And I forgot how funny it is, when he gives him that big...
the UV torch.
Yeah, and he's like, still heavy. He's like, but you're so big.
Yeah.
But there's, that's sort of establishing, you've got Blade's living quarters full of books.
And also, they're in an unused factory, which we all want to just knock about in an unused factory. Loads of space.
It just gave me sort of, I don't know, I was having, it reminded me of RoboCop.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, we've touched on Stephen Dorff, who I think is a great screen presence. I think it's a real shame. He's been in lots of stuff over the years, but I don't think he's ever really made...
I've only seen him in two big films. Like SFW was like kind of like more of a TV film about that hostage situation.
Yeah, but he's
this. I can't remember what else is he.
Well, I looked in. He's just sort of popped up in like loads of. He's continually working, but he's not really doing anything. He was in I think before he did this, he was in a film Backbeat, which was all about the Beatles, and apparently like he was the fifth Beatle. So based on a true story, and he was apparently it's a brilliant performance. And yeah, I think he's great in this. He ticks all the boxes. He's cool. He's charismatic. He's funny. He also rocks a really tight shirt with an open neck and a massive collar. Very late 90s. Whether it's black or white, he's got that look. He's got that sort of feathered sort of hair. I
looked up to him. I wanted to pop collar. I wanted to wear that shirt like he does, but I couldn't.
I wanted him to turn me, but not that way. Not in that way. Don't give me that look.
So, and who are, in terms of the other supporting actors, you've got the hematologist.
Yeah, I don't know how you pronounce. So she's called Karen in the film, but her I'm going to pronounce her name.
Just say it very quickly.
Nbush, right? It's N''Bush.
Nbush.
Nbush, Nbush.
Nbush, right?
Nbush. Well, yeah, we have no idea.
We're not mocking. We just don't know.
But so Karen she's the audience's eyes. You know, she's new to this world of vampires, and again, like every good retro Ramble film, there's some economic exposition. Yeah. So whether it's by Whistler, whether it's by Blade,
the first act is Acts 1 and Act 2 is pretty much just exposition.
Well, it's just sort of like Blade's walking down the street with Karen. He's like, "That's a vampire glyph. That's a vampire car. He's a vampire."
I can tell. I know how the way they walk, the way they hold themselves.
Yeah, he's not a vampire, but he's a familiar.
Yeah.
Familiars. What are familiars? Well, familiars. They work for the vampires.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is some exposition, but it's on the move, so it's fine. As I said, the original Blade character doesn't have all these superhero strengths. All the vampire strengths in the comics. This is a new edition, but I think it adds an interesting twist to the character of Blade. The fact that at the end of the day, he is a vampire. That is just unaffected by sunlight.
He's got his serum.
He's got his serum, but he hates the very thing he is. But he doesn't belong to humans. He doesn't belong to vampires. He's just somewhere in the middle.
And they also nicely set up. Well, maybe they're setting up 3, maybe they're not. But he turns to Karen and he says, "All I want to do in my life is meet the guy that made me what I am." He's like, "Oh, we'll just wait till Act 3. We'll just."
Well, isn't that convenient? Well, we're back with Deacon Frost, and again some well-edited stuff. But it's you've got.
What's his plan? What's his master plan? He has, because there's the we talked about before, the amazing Vampire Council with Udo Keir. But then obviously Frost has got his overthrow, his little.
So he's running his techno blood clubs, but he's also
he has a plan to usurp.
Yeah, by raising Lamagra, the blood god.
Yeah, you know Lamagra.
Yeah, everyone knows Lamagra. Well,
not to be confused with La Manga, which is a tennis club in southern Spain.
Why is Frost still on about that place in the Costa del Sol?
Gary Lineker goes on holiday there.
So yeah,
he is a vampire.
So Frost has this plan to take out the Vampire Council, or to overthrow it. So yeah, they can properly rule the human race. To do that, he needs to take out Udo Keir. So he takes him to the beach. Him and his blonde girlfriend get all sexy with applying suntan cream to each other. I think it's quite a nice twist, the fact that
good music.
Vampires putting on suntan cream.
Well, you also don't know what they're doing. You work it out later, but it just looks like she's doing some very sexual moisturising.
It's just like a really weird Nivea advert.
It gives a whole new meaning to the term of facial.
But yeah, then they put it's sunrise, so Udo Keir melts pretty much like the guys out of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
I was going to say Indiana Jones, but he does stand up to it. He doesn't go down cowering. He does like kind of sit up to the sun.
Yeah, he's quite defiant.
And explodes.
And explodes. But yeah, that's it. So like, how do we know he's dead? Well, his corpse did explode.
But obviously he takes out. I do like it. He takes out his fangs.
Yes.
To prove to the council that he's now the new boss. I am in charge. I've got his fangs.
So yeah, then we've got the first confrontation between Blade and Frost, and again, that's a daytime scene. It's a quite well written scene, and I think obviously David Goyer would go on. I think some of the stuff in the Nolan Batman films is great, especially with Dark Knight.
It's a lot of standoffs.
Yeah,
and that's what this is. It's a great standoff between Frost and Blade.
Nemesis and hero.
Yeah, and also he's like, you want me, you want to take me, you want to shoot me, but you
should be joining us, buddy.
Yeah, we should be ruling the humans. But no, it's a good scene, and then obviously you can kind of tell that we're hurtling towards, we're setting up Act 3. Everybody needs motivation. What's Blade's motivation going to be? If he didn't have one already, Whistler's death.
Whistler's death.
Spoiler!
Yes, we've kind of skipped over. There's like a few more action scenes, so there's a bit where they're in the vampire archives, lots and lots of servers with red lights, and then they're in the vampire Bible. And
that's when they nearly catch Blade, don't they?
Yes, they nearly capture. There's some good action there. where he's getting his ass kicked, but then Whistler comes and saves the day. A few scenes later, that Frost and his team sort of catch up with Whistler and take him out, and I think it's quite a touching scene. You know, Whistler's on his deathbed and Blade's basically holding him, but I thought that emotional poignancy was lost when Whistler's covered in blood and Blade has the tiniest tissue, and he's just dabbing these pools of blood it's gonna be okay, buddy. It's gonna be...
Can I find anything larger? We're in a factory. Can you maybe get a towel?
Exactly. He's just he gets him. He's like, yeah, it's pretty bad. But I don't know how you feel, because obviously
it's a moving scene.
It's a moving scene, and as you say, it gives Blade
walk away, just walk away, buddy.
But it gives Blade that motivation if he needed it to basically kill everyone, all the vampires. Sorry, we're kind of spoiler territory for Blade 2, but people who are familiar with the Blade trilogy, obviously Whistler comes back in the second one, and whilst it's great to have him back. I say he's a great character. Chris Christopherson is a brilliant actor, and they do interesting things with is he a vampire, isn't he, in the second one. I kind of feel it kind of cheapens this moment of the fact that, he's lost his father figure, his mentor.
Yeah, it seemed like they were reaching when they went back to it.
And it's almost like Pirates of the Caribbean. You thought he was dead, but you loved him in the first one. Don't worry, we'll bring him back anyway.
I remember just watching this, because I'm not sure if we're up to this bit yet. Is now a good time to talk about that bed that Deacon Frost has? Would you call it a bed trap?
What, the bed chamber type sort of pressure? It's like a giant Breville, but with a bed in the middle.
Does it come with its own scantily clad hottie?
That just sort of release.
Because what was she doing when the bed was shut? Was she just encased in it? Is the bed closed? I'll just wait here. Or maybe it's to protect them from daylight.
I think it's basically like a
coffin,
a very advanced coffin.
Yeah, and then that's when I realised that at this point in the film, 20 years on or whatever, I totally forgot his mum rocks up.
Yes.
Are we skipping it? No.
Well, that is that's in third act, but we've kind of, I think we're hurtling towards it. So Whistler's dead. You've got
Blade's getting closer. He's working out the plot of Frost. He's doing a bit of detective work. So it's a good sort of Batman-y detective thing running throughout.
So he's got this 3D graphic of La Magra that they've got off the really fat vampire, and I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like by the end of the film we've seen this 3D graphic.
Oh my god, so many times.
At least 20 times.
It's like, well, what is it? It's like, well, you can see. We've all seen it. ...
It's like someone's like, guys, I've spent a lot of time making this 3D program.
Hey man, at the time, this would have been leading edge 3D multimedia graphics.
It's like, can we just make sure it features quite highly in the film?
I thought we were only going to show this once. The final edit, it is shown 3 times at least.
Oh no, it's more than that. It's just constantly running in the background of the Whistler's death scene. It's just blood god, don't forget about the blood god. And even on his deathbed, Whistler's still delivering exposition
about the blood god.
Frost took it, said something about raising the Magra temple. Get that. Here's the address. So Blade, in typical sort of 80s and 90s action film fashion, gears up. He's getting his guns. He's making silver bullets.
Sword. He's getting all ready. He's getting
sharpening his sword, and he has a little bit of meditation.
Just calm down.
Yeah, just to calm down. Actually, I'm being a bit rash. Maybe I should just...
Can't we all just get along, Deacon Frost? Come on.
But yeah, we talked about this. There's a lot of pre-Matrix stuff in this, and I feel there's an action scene where Blade sort of attacks Frost's high-rise apartment building, and again, I was getting shades of that lobby scene from The Matrix.
The lobby scene.
It's as you know, where he's turning up. There's loads of guys clad in squat gear, riot gear, waiting for him to turn up, and he turns up and takes them all out.
Yeah.
And then there's
one at a time.
One at a time. There's those great, what are they called? The blood chemicals that make people's blood makes them explode.
We don't know. We don't care. That's got to be the funniest use of CGI.
Where the guy's head blows up like a massive raspberry.
Because there's those two we can do martial arts. We're going to slow you down. Not with one of these syringes in your eye.
So yeah, I mean we're hurtling along, but we're already at the third act, the vampire temple, and I'm actually I forgot, like, it's quite an impressive set, like in terms of the scale of it.
Do it?
Well, that's it. Like, I think
Building site, or was it like underground?
Did they hollow it out?
Does it actually exist?
Oh God, we're onto something. Truth is out there. But no, I think if it was made in today's, standards, that would be clearly like a CGI extension, and I don't think from watching the vast all 13 minutes of the special features on the DVD,
there are a lot of mind you, it was the birth of DVD. It was new. It was just put everything on the DVD.
Put everything. Interview with the cleaner. Put it on there. But it does look like it was. They built this massive practical temple set. The plan for La Magra is they need the blood of the Daywalker to drip onto the vampire council.
Blade is the key.
And to raise La Magra. And I think if you've seen the honest trailers, it becomes a sort of a plot point that all the Blade films use, that Blade's blood is the plot device moving the plot forward for each of the Blade films. So yeah, in this one they've captured Blade. They need to drain his blood. Thankfully, they've got in this temple that they've uncovered.
Oh, the custom-built coffin.
Yeah, so they've got this blood draining block. That's what I've written in my notes. That perfectly fits the silhouette of Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
I've just got one question. What if Blade was fat?
What if we were?
I've just been doing lots of meditating and I've decided to let myself go a bit.
I wasn't able to eat blood, so I've just been having loads and loads of like milkshakes. No, but yeah,
my arteries are pretty clogged.
It is a valid question. What if he was taller? It was like, would he have to bend on his knees?
Well, that's it. I mean, but it looks pretty cool.
It does look cool, and we're thinking it's that great sort of hero. He's got all of the strengths, none of their weaknesses, and he seems to be kicking ass throughout the film. So it is a very good sort of, this is how we're going to level it.
How's it going to get out?
So it creates a bit of tension.
Obviously, yeah, as you say, there's that sort of third act twist that his mother is still alive.
And she's still hot.
And
she kind of wants to... What? Can we talk about this?
Well, obviously, we touched on incest in Back to the Future in last month's episode.
Continuing with that theme, continuing with the...
Getting back to our monthly feature of Incest Monthly. Yeah, Blade's mum is definitely into him, and it's sort of like, whoa, mum, just because we're vampires doesn't mean that incest is okay.
Just because we both look the same sort of age.
Yeah, but yeah, she's pretty hot. She's kind of into him. She's rubbing her nose all over him. It's kind of weird. But what's even weirder is Karen escapes. Like, Karen's been put in the pit with the Rancor, but it's actually a zombie.
It's her ex-boyfriend.
So, instead of a Rancor, we've got your zombie ex-boyfriend
that we dragged out of the hospital. Managed to find him.
Yeah, so she escapes. She gets Blade out of the blood block, and the only way to get Blade's strength back is giving her blood to him. Now, it's totally consensual. It's totally consensual. It's all the whole tension, the whole stakes are rising because the La Magra is just about to reveal himself. That the music's reaching a crescendo.
The techno's building up.
The techno's about to be released. But yeah, obviously with the whole sort of vampire metaphor, vampires are always about fear of sex, fear of old age. Quite popular topic in the 80s because it's almost like an AIDS metaphor as well. But this is clearly a rape scene. Blade, she's even going...
No, stop!
Yeah, she's going, no, Blade, stop! And
he doesn't want to stop until he's done.
He's sucking her dry. So Blade gets his powers back and he dives into the temple. Badass! Release techno music. And when I was watching this, I was really tempted to scream Mortal Kombat, but I was on a crowded train, and I thought,
the last time I did that,
I was
a lot of explaining.
Escorted off by the transport police.
But I love this fight. I mean, the way he's taking them out one by one, and even Quinn, because Quinn takes his sunglasses off him.
So yeah, he manages to chop off Quinn's head
with a weapon we didn't know he had. Was
a James Bond thing? Well, here's a weapon I've always had but never used.
Yeah. So where is it?
It's like a drawstring on the side of his vest.
Yeah, and he pulls it out.
Gilet?
Yeah, I think it's obviously made of silver.
A padded gilet?
And then he just takes the guy's head off and catches his and his head evaporates and he catches his sunglasses and put it on.
And that's when the guy's sitting there with the tapes playing techno music.
Release techno music. And we, in our teens, we were like, yeah.
We may have high-fived in the cinema.
Yeah, I think there was definitely some of that. But getting back to the choreography, there's this blink and you'll miss it where Blade rips a guy's throat off and then throws it at the next guy.
Yes, yeah. But we were talking about that sort of one at a time attacking. I'm sure you can even see
that they're queuing
in
up.
the corner. Yeah, there's a guy like jumping up and down on the balls of his feet. It's like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to fight him. Just.
I can't fight him until he's taken out the other guy.
I should say it's a great fight scene. Again, it's choreographed with this pounding techno music. And it's great to see, like, all that choreography, all this sort of... There's a moment where Wesley and another guy are just doing, I think, roundhouses at each other.
Yeah, it's very Jean-Claude Van Damme. It's like, why? I can roundhouse. Yeah, me too. But we're both missing each other. It doesn't matter. Just keep going.
Doesn't matter. Looks cool. Keep playing techno music.
You've got the only thing that does date this film is the bits with the skeletons. Where the Jedi Council, Vampire Council.
Vampire Council, the ones that have existed for thousands of years.
Yeah, where they all turn into CGI skeletons. That does not look good.
That doesn't hold up. There's also the CGI blood for La Magra.
Just use real blood.
Yeah.
Why not just drip real blood on them? Or syrup.
Now is now the time to talk about the abandoned ending on the DVD special features.
I think there isn't going to be a better time. So before we get to, because we have we can finish off talking about there's the great fight between.
Yeah, so you've got the
normal version.
In the normal version, you've got a great fight between Deacon Frost and Blade with swords. I don't know where Deacon Frost gets his sword from.
He's La Magra.
But it doesn't matter.
It's like he's Batman. He's La Magra. He's got a sword. But Wesley Snipes comes out with some great line, which we think he came up with on the spot.
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Roundhousing the needle with the explosive DNA thing. I mean, do you practice that? You flip the syringe up in the air, you do a roundhouse. I mean, you're going to connect like probably 6 or 7 times out of 10 once you've got the timing right. But connecting, I don't know.
For me, it's up there with the scene in Hard Target where Van Damme does the roundhouse and kicks the grenade at Lance Henriksen. If you've got an object that you could just clearly throw at somebody, it looks a lot better if you roundhouse it. But imagine if you just missed it.
Yeah, I'm saying it went into his ankle and blew his own ankle off. that wouldn't have made the deleted scenes. Speaking of deleted scenes,
so yeah, instead of this, I say my memory of the DVD is so vivid because I think it was the first example I'd seen of a completely different ending. And so in the original ending, Stephen Dorff still turned into La Magra, but instead of it just being a vampire with enhanced healing powers and being super strong, he actually turned into a tornado of blood.
Which in a very small confined space doesn't look good.
That was throwing Blade around and stuff like that, and Blade still used his blue blood boiling sort of chemical to kill La Magra.
But it does not look anywhere near as good.
But yeah, they say, they're quite honest in the special features or on the DVD saying, yeah, we weren't sure how it was going to work. We tried to do it as a computer effect and yeah, it looked like Jell-O. So yeah, it basically ends up looking like red jelly. This swirl of red jelly is throwing Wesley Snipes around. Stephen Dorff's head keeps popping out of this red whirlwind of jelly.
Check it out. It's on YouTube.
It's on
Blade alternate ending CGI.
And yeah, they quickly sort of agreed that it was an awful idea, so they scrapped it. So yeah, it cuts to the sort of cliffhanger ending of Blade now in Russia, and he's hunting vampires in Russia, which actually neatly goes into the sequel. I think he's in Eastern Europe in Blade 2.
I think the better way to put that is the sequel neatly goes off the back of the first film.
Yes, maybe.
But no, it's a great bit of work. Very, very happy with it, and I enjoyed watching it again.
It's a lot of fun.
It's quick. It's not a long film.
I think a lot of people, Guillermo del Toro did Blade 2, and I think people sort of see that as the superior film. And again,
it's more horror.
And again, it's
scary, and it's got some bigger names in it.
It's
got Luke Goss from Bros.
Luke Goss from Bros. No, it's. I think Blade 2 is a great film, but in the same way as I feel about X-Men and X-Men sort of 2. The first one's doing all the heavy work in terms of introducing the mythology, the character, and as you say, it's got some great action scenes in it, some great action choreography, some banging techno, which isn't as prevalent in the sequel. I think that there's also some really good stuff in the sequel as well. So I think it's.
I like the vampires in the second one. The second one is a lot darker.
Yeah, I think that's
sort of alien, sort of Del Toro influence.
Yeah, they're very sort of monstrous things. And as you say, there's some great actors in there. You've got
Ron Perlman's in it.
Yeah, you've got Ron Perlman, you've got Luke Goss, you've got some more camp European vampires. You've got, what's he called? Is it Cat from Red Dwarf? Is it Lenny? What's his face? I can't remember.
I just call him Cat from Red Dwarf.
Lenny James, I think it is. But
it's worth a watch, and I think some of the CGI in that looked shaky at the time. Can you remember?
Yeah, no, because with that they've improved all the vampire deaths and stuff, but they try and do some martial arts using CGI doubles, and it just looks really rubbery.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's really, that's the thing that dates that film badly. Mm-hmm. So apparently, I say this was sort of the first successful Marvel adaptation. This was a year before. It kind of, in a way, reinvigorated the comic book genre after... to play on a pun, after Batman and Robin drove a stake through the heart of the comic book industry. So yeah, this was kind of for Marvel a starting block.
Maybe we could make enough money to buy back Spider-Man.
Yeah,
maybe we can make enough money to buy back X-Men.
Well, I mean, no, if obviously, it's those rights were still hold, but it showed to Fox. Let's give it a go with X-Men, and then obviously I think it was in 2000, Sam Raimi's Spider-Man came out. But obviously because Marvel are now all conquering, the rights are now for Blade are back at Marvel, and I think there was rumours last year that Wesley Snipes was in talks to bring back the character, because I think it's one of those things that a bit like Wolverine.
It could be older, and it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, and people see him as he
is Blade.
Yeah, it's his role. But Kevin Feige has said that there's no immediate plans to do anything with the character. But I don't know, what are your thoughts? Do you think it would work, as obviously with some of the darker stuff that Marvel are doing is all on Netflix? So Punisher, Daredevil.
Series
because there actually was a Blade series. I think it was released about 10 years ago with some rapper in it. It's obviously not that good because I think it lasted one series and nobody talks about it. Mm-hmm. But I think, it could work as a series. Obviously, the character doesn't work as a sort of 12A family friendly. You couldn't, have him.
No, it has to be. It was the fact that we enjoyed this film. It was an 18, loads of blood, loads of limbs being chopped off, and it was dialed back. I think Blade 2 was an 18, but Blade Trinity was a 15 or a 12, wasn't it? And I think that's probably what people's major gripe was.
And a travesty as well.
And a really bad film.
I mean, they put the blind girl in charge of security, for Christ's sakes.
No, I think for me, I would, if I was to see more Blade, it would need to be. If they find a way of reintroducing him, there's a number of ways they could do it. They could say, for example, maybe he's from Wakanda. Maybe that's originally where he comes from. I don't know, but I mean that doesn't really fit with him with the mythology of Blade.
No. Well, bizarrely, in the comic book mythology, he was born in a brothel in Soho in London. Wow. So anything could happen. But I realise we're coming to a draw, but I haven't done Coulda Woulda Shoulda.
So, who else was considered for the role, George?
So we've already talked about LL Cool J was in consideration early on, but when New Line got the rights and David Goyer was involved, there was 3 people on the wish list. So one of them was Wesley, and the other 2 again are not really surprising. They would be great fits. The other one is Denzel.
I was going to say Denzel. Yeah.
And before he got fat, Larry Fishburne. So again, pre-Matrix, Larry Fishburne.
He probably would have been ripped back then.
Yeah. He was. Well, obviously, he can hold his own in the Matrix films.
Yeah, but it is Wesley's role.
Yeah, and
any other Coulda Woulda Shouldas?
There were some Coulda Woulda Shouldas for
Stephen Dorff roles.
Yeah, there was actually the guy who was going to be Deacon Frost. Again, I don't know if this is just lazy casting directors, but originally it was going to be Bruce Payne, who is the villain in Passenger 57. He's the serial killer.
Yeah, he looks a bit like a vampire.
So yeah, I don't know if it's that. Well, him and Wesley had great chemistry in Passenger 57. Let's just get him back. But I think it again, me sort of the Stephen Dorff lover now. I think it's an inspired move. Instead of having a classically gothic, suave, English type sort of villain, you've got a young,
entrepreneurial,
brash American.
Yeah,
and it kind of works. I mean, he's still suave. And then they had somebody else for Whistler, and I looked him up, and I didn't have a clue who he was. So I'm not gonna. Yeah, I haven't even written it down.
I just Chris Christopherson does have a presence. I didn't obviously. I haven't watched a lot of the films he was in the 70s. I just remember him from this. And am I right in thinking he's in Payback with Mel Gibson?
He is.
Yeah, and it's just the way he talks. Is just his delivery. It's like I don't think anybody else can deliver lines like he can.
Yeah, I think there's a great line he has in the second one where he says, "Oh, how do you feel?" And he goes, "Like hammered shit." So yeah, I think that's all we've got to say. It's worth revisiting.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of love for this film, but even if you're not into it's a great film. It's interesting. I say there's tones of Batman. It's a detective thriller. It's a good paced film, and it's not too long. It still stands up well, and there's a few laughs. So yeah, I mean, if you're into this sort of genre, check it out.
Yeah, check it out.
So we'll be back next month with what we're not going to tell you. Are we going to tell them? Is it in the run-up to... No, I've forgotten.
Yeah, so this was obviously in the run-up for Infinity War, and I think next month sees the release of Star Wars spin-off Han Solo, or Solo as it's known. So in a real tenuous link, we're going to do Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
So excited about that. That's a big film. We're going big this year, aren't we?
Not shooting our load.
Yeah, I hope not. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. George and I now must leave you because we're going to a nightclub which backs on...
Sexy nightclub, which is near a butcher's
with this hot girl who's being really horrible to us and just like wants to suck our blood.
Sorry, I've got my cap on backwards. I'm dancing really badly. What could go wrong?
Which one of us is the douchebag?
We're both douchebags.
So I've been Charlie McGee.
I've been George McGee.
And thanks for joining us. See you next time.
See us next time on retroramble.blog.
And of course, we are on Spotify. We're getting more downloads off Spotify than any other channel. We're also on iTunes. We're on YouTube. We are on our own website, which George just read out. And before you delete Facebook, check us out. We're obviously on Twitter. We're on Instagram. And we're right here, right now. So if you're in the area, drop on by and say hello.
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't matter. Should we just fade out with some pounding techno music?
Yeah, just one at a time.
One at a time.
We have existed this way for thousands of years. Who are you to challenge our ways?